Welcome to the Cam and Joe Show, episode 2. I'm Joe Landolfi, joined along with my partner, Cameron Bill, and we are here for our second episode of our sports podcast. Last week, we talked a little bit about the NBA offseason and different moves, along with a little bit of MLB headlines, along with some NFL talk. Today, we will be continuing some NBA offseason stuff, but jumping into what has happened with Summer League up to this point. Then we will take a dive into MLB grades up to the halfway point of the season for each individual team. And then we will give some home run derby predictions and end with another NFL Would You Rather wide receivers edition. So first, Cam is going to start us off with his NBA Summer League headlines and a couple of players he wants to highlight and other big stories right now for Summer League with the season only about 2 months away. So what do you have for us, Cam?
So Summer League, you normally look at the top rookies, and that's what I'm going to start with. We'll start with Chet Holmgren. He's been very solid. He hasn't been exposed like many people thought he was going to be. And he's showing that his length can slightly overcome some of the people that are bigger than him, like weight wise. And he's been solid. He's been scoring very well. And Chet Holmgren looks to project really well, in my opinion, into the NBA. He's a little bit worse of a defender than Evan Mobley, but he's still solid. He'll still be good. And he's better offensively than Evan Mobley anyways. Then you talk about Paolo Banchero, who the Magic were like, yeah, I don't know if we really want to play him in Summer League anymore. He's already there. We don't want to see much more from him for him to get injured. So they just sat him down. He's done for the rest of Summer League. So he looked really good. He looked like he had that it potential, getting by someone and just scoring. That's what you want from a top pick, and he is doing it incredibly. Incredible defender, too. Jabari Smith's been a little bit disappointing, to be honest. A little bit of a slow start. But Keegan Murray looks fantastic. He looks great. Summer League MVP this year, in my opinion. He looks fantastic. He's going to be on a rough situation with the Kings because it's the Kings. It's just difficult to succeed with the Kings. But he looks really solid. He's scoring the ball really well. He's shooting it fairly efficiently. And he's been going off just on a nightly basis in all of the Summer League games. And the last player I want to talk about, Tyrese Martin, former UConn guy. He's been really solid with the Hawks. A lot of people thought he would just be their two-way guy that gets stashed. Maybe he comes up for a few games, plays solidly. He's been one of their best players in Summer League, if not the best. Taking a lot of shots. He was 9 for 14 with 21 points. And he was the leading scorer for that game. So I didn't think he was going to be the best player from UConn this year.
So what would you say about those 3 rookies you highlighted at the beginning, Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Pablo Banchero? Who would you say is the one you're the highest on up to this point? Up to this point, season?
I think it's Paolo Banchero because he's built already. He's got an NBA body. He's a really good scorer. He can get to his shot off the dribble, catch and shoot, dunk on anyone. And he's a really good defender. Jabari Smith hasn't shown a ton yet. He's been okay, but he hasn't been Paolo Banchero level. And Chet Holmgren, he's just good. He's pretty good. But I think Paolo Banchero has just been better up to this point.
So do you have anything to talk about in terms of Jalen Brunson and his story up to this point and what's going on?
So I've had a few conversations with some Knicks fans over the past week and their thoughts on the Jalen Brunson situation. They knew they needed a point guard desperately. A lot of the Knicks fans I've talked to say it's a fine trade or fine signing, but maybe a slight overpay. It's what you're going to have to get from a point guard. You're going to have to pay him that kind of money, but maybe a slight overpay. I think a lot of teams don't do that based on the overpay with the Knicks being so desperate to get a point guard, you had to do it. The Knicks also heavily rumored with Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So I was just going to ask about that and coming off the idea of, do you think it's a good fit as of right now?
It would be really interesting. I think Donovan Mitchell would really like it in New York because he's from New York. He's a good offensive guard. He's going to create a ton of shots. They don't exactly have that. You have Jalen Brunson, who can play the two very well. He was beside Luka Doncic for the past few years, and he's been really good. So,
and Donovan Mitchell's been almost the entire offense on a team for the past few years.
And now you had big offensive weapon Julius Randle, which not big on Julius Randle, but I mean he can work. If he's a third option on an offense, I think he'll be solid. But you're giving up a lot for Donovan Mitchell if you do trade for him. You've got Emmanuel Quickley. I think Jericho Sims the Jazz would want because they want a young center. You've got Emmanuel Quickley. You've got Cam Reddish, maybe Obi Toppin. Probably wouldn't trade RJ Barrett, but there's potential for that. And like 8 first-round picks. You've got all of that stuff to work with. I don't know what type of package the Knicks are going to put together, but it's going to be tough. It's not going to be tough to make a trade, to make a deal. It's going to be difficult to not give up too much for the Knicks.
Okay, so that will wrap up our opening segment of NBA Summer League and more off-season news and rumors.
I've got one more thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
DeAndre Ayton. The Pacers are like, we really want DeAndre Ayton. We're going to give him 4 years, $133 million. Something crazy.
I thought it was 44.
I don't know. He was making like
144.
Yeah, he was making like 33.4 a year. That's wild money for DeAndre Ayton. Keep in mind, it's DeAndre Ayton. The Suns could have tried to get something back for it in a sign and trade. Instead, they matched that contract. So they will be paying DeAndre Ayton $33 million next to Chris Paul's 45 and Devin Booker's max contract. You could have tried to get KD if you just let him walk, but I don't think you can do that anymore. Because he'd have to be a moving piece, and you can't trade him because of the recently signed deadline. It's just not something the Suns should have done. Could have gotten KD. Instead, they have DeAndre.
So what does this mean for Kevin Durant now? Now that that was the team that was on the top of his list, and that was really probably his number one, as many rumors said.
It's difficult for Kevin Durant to go where he wants now. The Heat would have to give up a ton, and he doesn't want to go to the Heat if they have to give up that much. Very good possibility, as we talked about last week, that he stays in Brooklyn. Kyrie already said he wants to stay in Brooklyn with or without Kevin Durant. I don't know if you saw that, but he said he's fine. He's okay with just staying in Brooklyn.
There were money lines. There were money lines about where Kyrie's next landing spot will be in the top 3 odds right now. We're Brooklyn, the Lakers, and then Memphis as the number 3.
I don't think Kyrie to the Lakers can work because of money, and the Nets do not want Russell
Westbrook. And the coach has already said that Russ is the guy.
No way that's going to happen. That's the NBA.
No. So that'll wrap up our NBA segment now. And now we're going to move over to Major League Baseball. Now that we're just about over the halfway point, but the All-Star break is coming up next week. So we're going to talk a little bit about teams' grades. We talked a little bit about main headlines last year from around the league, but we didn't go too much in depth. So I'm going to go division by division, and you feel free to jump in where you want if you agree, disagree, or have anything to add on. So first, I'm going to start in the AL East, top to bottom with the New York Yankees, who I think deserve an A+. I think just the way that the bullpen has been managed, the arms that they've been relied on, I think that's really been the big piece, because last year there were many games that they had like an over 95% chance to win going into the ninth inning, and they couldn't shut it down. And Clay Holmes has really been a guy, along with other guys like Michael King, Lucas Licky. There have been other guys out of that bullpen who have provided multiple really strong innings. And obviously the offense, it's about what we expected. They were going to hit the most home runs in the league. I'd say Judge, I mean, everyone expected Judge to do well, just not this well. And overall, the lineup top to bottom's produced when they've had to.
Yeah, Yankees.
So I think they're
top
going to
two.
win. Yeah. Yep. Tampa Bay, I'm going to give them an A minus. The reason I think they're even in the A category to begin with is because they've dealt with a lot of injuries. Tyler Glass now hasn't pitched at all this year, and he was one of the best pitchers in the league. Brandon Lau hasn't played much this year. Wander Franco's injured, but they continue to either call up guys or make little trades around the league for nothing, pay these guys nothing, and they're still well over 500 and in the top wild card spot. It's like this every year. I give them a lot of credit for what they do. I just don't think they're championship worthy. They just don't have that. That's part of the problem with their budget issues. They're never going to be that put you over the top for multiple championships. I don't even think they'd win one championship with the team they have right now. And third is the Red Sox. I give them a B plus, only because they started off the season so bad in the month of April and into a lot of May. But since June rolled around, they've played a lot better. Over the past 2 weeks, they've kind of struggled, but a lot of that's been the bullpen. A lot of that's been fatigue. They've dealt with a lot of injuries to the starting rotation, and they've still been able to manage over the past month. So I give them credit on that end. They're still in a playoff spot. I think they're going to remain in a playoff spot for the rest of the year. But I think if they trade for a reliever, that could put them into the A minus category, or even trade for someone like Josh Bell, who's a switch hitter, even though he strikes out a lot, he'll hit you some home runs and he plays first base very well. Kind of like they did last year with Kyle Schwarber, who really pushed them all the way to the ALCS.
The Red Sox need a first baseman, and that's very apparent. Can't have Franchy Cordero playing.
I mean, it's supposed to be Dahlbeck, but his offense has really struggled.
And Franchy Cordero can't play. So
no, yeah, his issues are more defensively. Franchy's been okay offensively. So now the Blue Jays, I'm giving them a C, only because they're right now out of a wild card. They're about hovering on the bubble with the Mariners because the Mariners have been playing so well. But the Blue Jays really, part of it's been injuries, I know, but their lineup's really been healthy all year, and they really have not produced to the level that they should be. They have a bunch of all-stars, sure, but they haven't really been able to put it together. And with the firing of their manager a couple of days ago, it really shows the state that they're kind of in a panic mode, because they were really supposed to be the favorites going into the division this year. And they're right now in fourth place, only a few games up on the Orioles, who I'm going to get to in a second, for last place. So Toronto either needs to make a trade. I think part of it with the managerial trade, I was never a big fan of Charlie Montoyo. I think this could help them, but how much will their bench coach really help them? How are we supposed to know? So It'll be interesting to see heading into the second half of the season after the All-Star break if anything changes in Toronto. With Baltimore, I give the Orioles an A. I mean, I
don't know if you can give them an A, but I'm very in favor for
what they were. I think they deserve an A.
We can compromise at a B plus. I'd be completely fine with them. A is like
what would you give them? What would you give them?
I'd give them a B plus. They're a bad roster.
A B plus.
That's been very solid, and they've went on a win streak. But
they're over 500.
They're not an A. They're not like in the same Dodgers Yankees tier.
No, but that's not what I mean. I'm saying for that team as a whole.
I know. I don't think they're an A. I think they're a B plus.
I could give them an A minus. I just think the way that their pitching's been managed has been unbelievable. In that division that they've had to play like 4 of the top 10 teams in the league, and they're still over 500, and they're right out of a wild card spot on a team that was had a 0.02% chance of making the playoffs. I think they deserve more than a B.
I'm giving them a B plus, so it's more than a B.
Oh, okay, fine, whatever. To the AL Central, Minnesota Twins. They're a division leader, so I'll put them in an A category. I'm going to give them an A minus. They're in first by 3.5 games. Their pitching was really like the issue, like the concern going into this year, and it really hasn't been that bad. But overall, I mean, getting production out of Carlos Correa, you're getting production out of a lot of guys up and down the lineup. And a main thing has been Byron Buxton has stayed healthy for the majority of the year, and he is really the spark plug for that Twins offense. So I give them an A minus. And as of right now, I think they're going to win the division unless something really changes. In second place is Cleveland. I'd probably give them an A minus as well, just because they really were supposed to be like a fourth place team going into this year. And they're only a 3.5 back of the division. They're right outside the wild card. Terry Francona is an outstanding manager. Their pitching's been really good with Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie. I think their lineup has struggled, but Jose Ramirez is top 5 for MVP. And I think that guy, if they can bring in a hitter, they can make a run at one of those 3 wild card spots or even the division.
Yeah, I think they can make a run at the division if they bring in one more really solid bat.
Yeah. Chicago White Sox. Right now, they have been the biggest disappointment in my opinion because they're under 500. They were supposed to win this division easily. That's why right now I'm either giving them a D plus or a C minus because I really, this has not been good managerial wise, coaching wise. They've made base running mistakes. They've blown games, which you wouldn't expect out of a team with Kendall Graveman and Liam Hendricks. But they've also, injuries haven't even impacted them greatly. The Reese Robert came back. He's been okay. But besides that, everyone's been pretty healthy. The pitching rotation is about the same as last year. And I don't think this team is making the playoffs. I really don't. They're going to have to trade for something, but what piece are they really missing?
They're missing a young manager that knows what's going on the baseball
field.
I
mean, that's the thing is I don't think they're going to fire Tony unless it's after this season.
Yeah. So one of the biggest disappointments, if not the biggest disappointments. Yeah. Oh my God. Tony La Russa. What are you doing? You have a really talented team. Incredibly really talented team. Yeah. So the bottom 2 teams in that division, the Tigers and the Royals. I'll start with Detroit. I give them a D because Javier Baez they brought in for a lot of money and he's been really bad. Their young rotation has been decent but not good. They're not to that point. They're really doing worse than they were last year, and on paper they were a much worse team. I don't really know much about this team. It's really hard to sell again with this team because they don't have big pieces. It's not like you're going to trade Miguel Cabrera anywhere. Like this team's in a tough situation. I think their prospects will be decent, but it's still going to take a little while. Yeah. And Javi Baez needs to find his swing again. Yeah. Kansas City, I give them a C minus just because I think, I don't know, they weren't really supposed to be that good in the first place, and they've shown some bright spots. The pitching's atrocious, but there wasn't really a main ace on that team in the first place. The offense has been decent when Merrifield's healthy. Benintendi's been a really good hitter, but hasn't been hitting for power. They're going to sell. They have a lot of young players who, in the future, this team, I'm not as worried about this team as I am with the Tigers going forward. The problem with selling for the Royals right now is you have Whit Merrifield. He's fine. You can sell Whit Merrifield. You're not going to get a ton for it. The Andrew Benintendi trade market is all over the place. On the pure reason he's a really good hitter. He's an okay defender, but he can't travel to Toronto. So Toronto's completely out of it. They don't want to trade for Benintendi because he's not. Okay, yeah. Vaccinated. So that would eliminate AL East teams. Exactly. So no AL East teams are going to trade for him. And any competing American League team that might have to go to Toronto for a wild card spot. Yeah, for a division series. Yeah. No, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it would have to be an NL team anyway. I still think he's going to get traded either way. He will be, but it's not. You'd want a lot for him, and you'd better hope that I know. Some NL teams got some big prospects that they're willing to give up. Yep. So AL West,
Houston Astros, I think they're an A+ as well. They're the second best team in the American League. They've been losing players for the past 4 years when it was Springer, Garrett Cole, Carlos Correa, Zach Greinke, I guess. I mean, they lost Justin Verlander, but he
For a
came
year.
back and he's better. He's better than he really has ever been right now. He's probably in the top 3 for Cy Young. And they have rookies coming up. They've had Garcia and Valdez, 2 young pitchers who've come up and established themselves in that rotation. Jeremy Pena's taken Correa's spot, and like we were talking about last week, he's been just as good. And you've got your core, really. You've got those guys like Martin Maldonado, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Yuli Gurriel. They're still all there, and it's still a really good team, and they should be one of the favorites in the AL, and that's why they're an A+. Seattle, the Mariners, right now, they're on the wild card bubble. I give them an A- just because they got off to a really bad start. They were in 4th for a while, past the Rangers, past the Angels. They're not going to win the division. The Astros are too far ahead, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the year that they can pass either Toronto, maybe Tampa, maybe Boston, and get into one of those wild card spots and break that curse. If I were to put a prediction on it now, I'd say no, just because I think they're a little too inexperienced. But I think overall, I mean, this team with Julio Rodriguez, that rookie, he's right now, I'd say rookie of the year for the American League. And that team is going to be good. If it's not this year, there's a really good chance at it next year.
Yeah, they're a team that just looks like they have the magic to win a wild card game, even though they're not the most talented team. J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez looks great. The Mariners, just as a team, look really solid. You can't win the division with the Astros there. But you can, like you said, wild card spot, very doable.
Yep. So then the 3rd place team is the Texas Rangers. I give them a B- because they've been hovering around 500 all year, and they really weren't supposed to be this good. They signed big names such as Simeon, Seager, John Gray from the Rockies. They spent a lot this offseason. People expected them to get better. But I'd say people still expected them to be a 4th place team. And although they're in 3rd, they were in 2nd for most of this year. They were right around a wild card spot. They're still a little outside the bubble, and I think they're kind of fading away from that wild card hope. But I'd still say I really like what I've seen from a lot of the young Rangers player, and they're a scrappy team. They put wins together, and I think it's a good team to look at to say, okay, I'm not worried about this team as a franchise over the next 5 years.
Yeah, Corey Seager started off really, really slow. He's starting to find it. Simeon's just been kind of bad.
Yeah.
Starting to slightly get a little bit better to where he was, but streaky team. They're going to hit a run very soon, jump up, but they might have a really bad fall, and that's it for their season. As soon as a bad fall happens.
So the 4th place team in this division, another one of the most disappointing teams in the league, is the Los Angeles Angels. They are one of the worst teams in baseball. They came into the season with, we got Noah Syndergaard. Anthony Rendon's going to be healthy. Shohei Ohtani won MVP. Mike Trout's going to be healthy. But they still can't put it together. They had to fire their manager, Joe Maddon. Their new manager, Phil Nevin, really hasn't made much of a change. They lost 11 or 12 games in a row at one point earlier in June. And ever since then, they have not been playing over 500 baseball. They're way down. I give them an F. I just don't think that this, obviously they're not going to make the playoffs. It's just, you're getting to the point where they're saying, we're going to sell off Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. It's like, well, I don't think that's going to happen. But when you start talking about that, it really does not look good on your franchise. Whereas Mike Trout has been your guy that the kids and the fans come out to watch every day. And now you have Shohei Ohtani, who's like a one in a universe player that you just don't see anymore with what he can do. And it's disappointing what the franchise has done over the past 5 years. Mike Trout's literally only made it to the playoffs once.
Yeah. The Angels are a disaster of an organization. And you brought up trading Shohei last week. And within the next 3 years, I could really see that.
Especially if they keep bringing in it doesn't matter how many free agents you sign if you can't draft around these guys, especially if these free agents keep getting hurt every other year and they can't even play half a season. That's all I can say about that team.
The Angels just need to get it together. I don't get them.
Last team in the American League, the Oakland A's. They're either a D- or an F. I lean F only because as an organization, they traded away Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, what's his name? Sean Manaea, who could have been their best pitcher. They really don't have anything anymore. They're going to trade. They got rid of Chris Bassett as well. Another really good pitcher now with the Mets. They're going to get rid of other names. Ramon Laureano is another outfielder who could be dealt. Cole Irvin's a pitcher who could be dealt. It's just getting to the point where the A's are always in rebuild mode. And even though they've made the wild card and they've always pushed for the playoffs these past 5 years, they're the worst record in the league right now. And I really don't see any positives coming out of the season for any player on that team.
The A's are the definition of a team that will always be a bottom dweller if they don't have a change in power in their organization. Their owner just sits up there, doesn't renovate a stadium. He sits there, has the least payroll possible, and just collects his money at the end of the year. He's not a guy that's really big into, let's have a good competing team. I don't care if we win 4 games this year. I'm still making a load of money. And you can't have that if you're the MLB. So someone needs to step in and say, hey, let's try to get
and
this.
They're not
going
to be able to hit on. They're not going to be able to hit on every trade they make, trading away every star for prospects. No matter how many prospects you get,
you know what happens after that, right? The prospect turns good in 2 or 3 years, and they sell him off. It's just going to be a cycle. So
it's just that's the A's circle.
The way that you have to do this is you have to boot him out, give him over to Las Vegas with a guy who's really
go
rich
to Vegas
and wants to
or
win.
Nashville. I'm telling you right now, if Nashville gets a baseball team, that place is going to be nuts. Memphis with the Grizzlies does really well. The Titans do pretty well, even though their stadium's kind of mid. But I think if Tennessee gets a baseball team down south, man, they love it. They love their baseball. Yeah. And that would be a huge victory for the Oakland A's if they went to Nashville. I like Vegas better just because Vegas has done well so far as a sports city. But I'm just saying, if that's not what they want to do, Nashville's an option.
Yeah.
So now the National League, NL East, New York Mets, I'm giving them an A. They could be an A+, but the only reason is because they're always known to choke in the second half of the season. And I could see it happening again this year, like I said last week. Rotation's really good. Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker's been really good. DeGrom's coming back in a few weeks. It's just that, I don't know. I mean, there's depth with this team. I just don't think they're coming out of the NL for the World Series yet. I still think the Dodgers are a better team than them. I still think the Brewers match up with them really well in a playoff series. I think the Brewers have better bullpen depth, and I think that's huge in a playoff series. So that's why they're only an A for me. The Atlanta Braves, I put them also as an A, just because they're only 2.5 back of the Mets, and they've been playing better recently, which means they are more like they're trending upwards, whereas the Mets are more in neutral. I think the Braves, now that Ozzie Albies is coming back, Matt Riley's now in the MVP conversation. Ronald Acuna is just an everyday star. We already know that. And their young rotation's really good. I mean, this team won the World Series last year. A lot of people don't remember that they came out of that division. They were the worst division winning team based on record wise. They still won the World Series. They made a great run and beat a really good team in the Astros in the World Series. And so I give them a lot of credit. The Phillies, I'm going to give them a B+, only because ever since they fired Joe Girardi, they've been really, really good. I don't know if they're a playoff team. I think they'll be right there to the end. I think bringing in Kyle Schwarber was a really good move. Nick Castellanos was a really good move. They might want to trade for a pitcher or some more bullpen depth, which continues to be their weakness. But I put them in the B+ category. They're overall a really solid team. I really like what I've seen from that team.
It's a tough division, just like the AL East is. and it's
Yeah.
tough to be at the top when there's three people that could be right at the top.
Fourth place, Miami Marlins. I give them a C right across the board. I think they're a really average team. They're right around 500. They've got really good young talent like Jazz Chisholm, Sandy Alcantara, and they've got a really good farm system. And this team's going to be really good. Their pitching depth is really good. Their bullpen's not bad. Their lineup's not bad. It's just they haven't been able to put it all together to go on runs. Health has been another problem with that team. But overall, I'd say, I don't know, Marlins about what I expected from them this season. Not a big disappointment, but not a success in any way, really.
It's Sandy Alcantara has been the Cy Young for the NL this year, and it's not even really close with anyone else. He's been the best player on an average to bad team, and he's the reason why they're solid at this point. Jazz Chisholm's a really young, exciting player, all-star, and Sandy Alcantara is just so good. He's incredible, but you don't really have anyone else around them to compete, and that's not what the timeline they're on is anyway.
So then the last place team in the division is the Washington Nationals. I'm going to give them a D. I mean, Juan Soto is still a fun player to watch, even though he's had his struggles. Health has been a concern with them. Steven Strasburg's supposed to be their guy, but he hasn't been healthy. Patrick Corbin, you would then think is their guy, but he's really fallen off over these past 2 years ever since they won the World Series. And overall, I mean, sure, Josh Bell's had a solid year. They signed Nelson Cruz, but he hasn't done too much. They were really, like, a lot of people picked them to be the worst record. They're not going to be the worst record, but they are in baseball. I mean, in division, they're going to be their worst record. But I'm saying in baseball, a lot of people pick them to be the worst team. There's still some good prospects in that organization that'll be called up in the next few years. Not too worried about the Nationals. It's just they're not a good team. That's really all it comes down to.
Yeah, it sucks for Juan Soto because he's such a good player, and there's not much of a team around him anymore. Just if you're a Nationals fan, think back to 2019. You won the World Series. Don't think about right now. You still have Juan Soto. Hopefully you can build around him for the next year or the next few years if you decide to keep him, which you should because he's that good of a player. But
he's a great
think about
hitter.
2019.
National League Central, Milwaukee Brewers are leading by 3 or 4 games right now. I give them an A-. Only because, they've dealt with some health problems. Their rotation is still one of the best in the league. Corbin Burns, Eric Lauer, Brandon Woodruff. They're just overall as a team, I think Christian Yelich has really underperformed, and he's a guy that you really think about when you think of the Milwaukee Brewers. They've got guys up top to bottom, really not big name guys, but they're really producing for that team. And obviously you got guys like Devin Williams and Josh Hader coming out of that bullpen. It's going to be a scary team pitching wise going into October. They might want to acquire another bat before the offseason. I mean, before the trade deadline. But no, I like what I see from the Brewers from the National League. And they're right now my pick to come out on top in the division over St. Louis.
The Brewers have a really elite pitching staff, top tier pitching staff with Hader, even though he just blew a save a few days ago, with one of his few blown saves this year. They're a really scary team when it comes to the playoffs because you've got 3 guys that can start for you that are really good. Then you have your bullpen, which is nuts. So Devin Williams, Josh Hader. It's just tough to beat them if you don't get the bats around because you probably won't win a game if you only score 1 run against the Brewers.
Yeah. The St. Louis Cardinals, I give them a B+. I mean, they're really close to the Brewers. Paul Goldschmidt, NL MVP right now. Nolan Arenado's been solid, not like he was with Colorado, but they're the best defensive team in the league based on saving runs, based on their fielding. Their outfield is really good. Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, and bringing back Albert Pujols for his last year there is awesome. And I don't know. I mean, their rotation's solid. I just don't think they're better than the Brewers, mainly because of their pitching. I don't think their pitching has it. Their lineup top to bottom, I'd say it's better than Milwaukee, but I don't think they're better as an overall team.
Yeah, They're solid defensively. Albert Pujols doesn't really play ever, but when he does, he hits the ball hard. Really good defensive team, really solid team.
Pittsburgh Pirates, I give them a C. A lot of people picked them to finish last again because they were one of the worst records last year. They're in third right now. Obviously, over the Cubs and the Reds isn't really that hard to do. But I think this being the worst division, the Pirates have played all right. I mean, they're not close to 500, but they've got some young players who you look at and you say, okay, we can make a team out of this. And their biggest weakness really is their pitching. They don't really have much. Their lineup's going to be okay. They're going to score runs. It's just they're not that great of a team overall. The Chicago Cubs, I put them as a D. I mean, Wilson Contreras and Ian Happ are the only guys really left from that World Series team from 2016. And Wilson Contreras, I think, may very well be dealt off before the deadline. Once again, Chicago, just not enough pitching depth, not enough guys in the lineup top to bottom. Few young kids who you could look at with potential like Patrick Wisdom, but not a great team. And then the Reds, I put as a D plus right now. Even though they have a worse record than the Cubs, I give them a better grade just because I thought the Cubs would do better than they did, whereas the Reds started off atrociously. And now they're not as bad as people think. They took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. They're playing close games. Luis Castillo's healthy, and he's been really, really good. Hunter Green's been really good in the starting rotation. It's a pitching staff that can be built around of. The problem is they dealt away a lot of their key pieces like Castellanos, Jesse Winker, Scooter Jeanette's not there anymore. There's just guys that really, besides Joey Votto, I mean, he's the only one left from you when you think of the core Reds lineup.
Yeah, the Reds probably will trade Luis Castillo. He's one of the top trade targets for pitchers. They are rebuilding, obviously. They're just in an awkward spot in their rebuild. Jonathan India is really good, but
so now the NL West, our last division, the Dodgers are an A+ just because they're overall on paper the best team. They were the best team coming into this season. Their lineup top to bottom, there's no holes. Their pitching rotation has had guys like Tony Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson, who are right now could be in discussion for Cy Young in the NL, where everyone thought it would be Walker Buehler or maybe Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, Tony Gonsolin's 11-0 right now.
Yeah, he hasn't lost. It's been crazy, and their bullpen's been solid too. I mean, they got Craig Kimbrell. I mean, he isn't how he used to be, but still, I mean, there's really not a really big weakness on this team. They might bring in another reliever, but really, like, what's the point? I mean, they're already National League favorites right now. San Diego, A-. They were really competing with the Dodgers up through June, but ever since July, they've kind of fallen off. So I give them an A- because I think they're still a clear wild card team. I think they can make a run if everyone stays healthy. It's just right now, Joe Musgrove has been really good. He's in Cy Young discussion. He's their ace. Yu Darvish has been their number 2. He's been solid. Sean Manaea has probably been their number 3. When you really think about it, Blake Snell is like their 4, their 5.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a good problem to have, but he really hasn't been that good. The Padres bullpen has been okay, not the greatest. And Tatis hasn't even played this year. So when he comes back, it'll give him a boost. It'll be interesting to see how they fit him in and how often he's going to get play time.
And but where still, he even plays on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Padres, it's a good problem to have with them. But no, I think this is still a really good team.
Where do you think he plays the best on the Padres? Do you think he still sticks at shortstop? Do you think he sticks in left field, right field, even throw him in center?
Who's playing shortstop for them right now? Trent Grisham's had some time at shortstop. Cronenworth's had some time at shortstop.
Do you think
I think they're going to – huh?
Do you think he plays infield?
I think they should try it when he comes back. I think that's your top priority. Because, I mean, the last thing you need, because, he had his wrist injured.
Yeah.
The last thing you need is him diving for a ball in the outfield and twisting his wrist again.
Yeah, but I think with Tatis's arm, just in general, you keep him short for the first bit just to get him back up to speed. But I think if you stick him in center or if you stick him in right, he's got a
I think he'd
cannon
have
of
to
an
go to
arm.
right. I don't think he's a center fielder. I think he
Well,
could be, but
Aaron Judge is not really a center fielder, but he's a center
yeah,
fielder
but
right
the
now.
Yankees have a lack of depth in the outfield based on playing the outfield
Aaron
this
Judge
year.
could play center field for almost any team at this point.
Yeah, but the Padres don't have that problem. They have outfielders.
Yeah, but I still think Tatis could play center field if you really.
No, I think he could.
I think you want
I don't-
Tatis to play center. He's quick, extremely athletic, good glove. His arm's just not
I think
there.
if he starts to struggle at shortstop or you see a problem in the outfield, then by all means put him in center field or in right field. But I think you got to start the kid at shortstop.
That's what you paid him to do.
So San Francisco, the Giants, I'm giving them a C plus. I mean, they're over 500, but they've been falling off a lot. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs at this point. Carlos Rodon has been really good. Besides that, not too much. I mean, this isn't that same 100-win Giants team like we saw last year. So I don't have much to say about this team. But yeah, no, I give them a C. I don't think there's much to really like about it, not much to hate on it either. That's why it's a solid C. Colorado Rockies also a C. Worse record than the Giants. They're below 500, but their pitching's been pretty solid, given that they're playing at Coors Field. CJ Cron has been a home run machine. Chris Bryant's been their overall most disappointing player. Like he's hit very few home runs. I mean, I think there's guys to build around. I think it was weird that they signed Bryant in the offseason only because they just didn't want to re-sign Trevor Story. They traded Nolan Arenado. They didn't want to re-sign Kyle Freeland. I mean, if you kept all those pieces, you might have had something, but it's really not. It's not, it's not a complete team as of right now.
Yes, the Rockies.
Yeah, it's been like this for a while. And then finally, Arizona, C plus, just because they were supposed to be in last. They are in last, but only by a little bit. And they've had some bright young kids. Their rotation is like Bumgarner, Dallas Keuchel, Zach Gallen. There's not much there. There's not much to love about the Diamondbacks, but not much to hate on given what they were supposed to do. So, yeah, that's about all I have to say about them. So that'll wrap up my divisional grades. Comment what you disagree on, what you would change. And now we're gonna talk a little home run derby prediction. Not gonna go round by round if we don't have enough time. We're just gonna say guys who we think are best chance of winning and who our predictions are. Guys to watch. So Cam, you go ahead and start.
So the big matchup in the first round, Schwarber versus Pujols. I think Pujols has a chance to upset him, but he doesn't have the gas to get through the second round or the third round. So if he does upset, I think the finals, looking at the bracket right now, it's impossible not to pick Pete Alonso on his side of the bracket because that's all he does. That's all Pete Alonso does is swing like he's in the home run derby. And on the other side of the bracket, I'm going to take Jose Ramirez because I think he's going to beat Juan Soto because Soto didn't have a fantastic showing. So if he beats Soto, then he's got to beat either Pujols, who I talked about. He might not have the gas to get through the second round, or Schwarber, who it's going to be tough to beat Schwarber. But other than that, I think Jose Ramirez, he's got a really good shot to make it to the finals. We probably will lose to Pete Alonso because Pete Alonso is one of the best home run derby participants of all time. I don't think that's not take it all.
I'm going to agree that my final prediction is Pete Alonso winning. But I think a guy to watch is Kyle Schwarber. I think he's going to beat Pujols in the first round. Schwarber just looks like he's made for home run derby. Watching him with Boston last year, he would consistently go on home run tears. Obviously, that's not a derby, and you could see guys come out of nowhere in these derbies. But I think Pete Alonso is just too good whenever he does this. He hit over like 200 home runs in the whole derby combined last year. It was crazy. But I don't know. I mean, I think this is a fun event. Like a lot of baseball fans really like this. A lot of people don't, but I don't know. I think it's cool just to watch these guys because they have a lot of fun when they do it, and it's just kind of a cool thing to see every year. So now to wrap up, we're not going to talk much NFL, but we're going to do a would you rather of NFL wide receivers. I just got 5 for us today. And then next week, we'll try to go live and get some calls in if we can. If not, then we will just do another taped episode and post it on YouTube. But we'll talk a little bit more NFL, a little bit more MLB. Those will be our main topics next year because you didn't get a lot of NFL today. But anyway, speaking of NFL, so for wide receivers, would you rather Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp heading into this season?
Cooper Kupp, I think, because Cooper Kupp had a better year. It's difficult to do that again, and I don't think he does the same. He's not going to have the same year he had, but I think I'd take him with the Rams offense over Justin Jefferson.
So I'm leaning Justin Jefferson. I watched them both a lot last year. Cooper Kupp obviously had the better season. I think Justin Jefferson overall as a wide receiver, though, is more talented. I mean, I think they're both incredible. They're both amazing. But Justin Jefferson, I think, had a worse quarterback throwing to him. And I think he was the main target for defenses. Like the next main threat was Adam Thielen. Whereas you look at the Rams, they had Odell Beckham Jr., they had Robert Woods for a time. They had Tyler Higbee. I think it's close, but I'm leaning Jefferson only because I think overall, I think his aspects and athletic ability, I think it puts him over the edge just by a bit. So next, Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs?
Stephon Diggs, because he's not as fast, but he's a better route runner. I think he's just a better receiver overall. Tyreek Hill just beats people over the top and after the catch.
I agree, Stephon Diggs. Odell Beckham Jr. Or CeeDee Lamb? OBJ being healthy.
Okay, I was about to ask. I think CeeDee Lamb right now. I saw a video of him working on his route tree. Looked really good. So I'll take CeeDee Lamb.
So will I. I think it's pretty close just because of what we've seen from OBJ over the years. But CeeDee Lamb, I think, is going to have one of his best years of his career, if not his best coming into this year. So Jalen Waddle or Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen obviously being Chargers #1, whereas Waddle's the Dolphins #2, but Waddle could be a #1. This is a really interesting one in my opinion. So what do you think?
I love Jalen Waddle, so it's very difficult to pick against him. But Keenan Allen with Justin Herbert is too difficult to not say yes to.
Okay. No, that's completely fair. I think Keenan Allen is so far, we've seen from him what he can bring to a team and his consistency every day, whereas Waddle's, obviously, we've only seen a season from him. And it was awesome, but I still have to see more before I put him in one of those categories. Then the last one, another rookie from last year, Ja'Marr Chase or Deebo Samuel.
I'm going to take Ja'Marr Chase because he was my guy. Ja'Marr Chase was my guy in fantasy last year, and I love him. I love the Bengals. I love Ja'Marr Chase. I love Joe Burrow.
I was just going to say I'm taking Ja'Marr Chase because of what he does with Joe Burrow.
Deebo Samuel is really good, though, and he might not have the same type of year because he said he doesn't want to do all the screen running
Yeah,
back
so I
stuff.
don't think his value is going to be as great for a team. Whereas Jamar Chase would go crazy all the time, like on consecutive drives. Like it wasn't even funny. Like it literally, teams would get burned. It was crazy. So next, I think that's going to about wrap up where we stand today, because we touched on everything we really have to. Next week, as I said, we're going to try to go live. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, like the video, comment on any takes you have or anything you disagree, agree, whatever. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Cam and Joe Show. And yeah, I think that's gonna about do it. If you have any last things to say before we sign off.
One last thing. What's your WNBA finals prediction at the All-Star break?
The Sun. The Sun, of course, against whoever. Doesn't matter.
Think
they're gonna win.
Finals prediction is going to be Connecticut Sun versus the Las Vegas Aces because they're their top two teams. I think the Sun are going to take it. It's going to be tough against Asia Wilson and everyone over there in Las Vegas because they're really good. The Aces are really good. Big WNBA guy. Kelsey Plum's really good too. Shout out. All-Star Game MVP.
All right.
Go Sun.
So Cam's gonna sign us off for now. I'm Joe. He's Cam. This is the Cam and Joe Show. Cam, how would you end it for us?
Go Sun.
Go Sun.